We just came back from seeing the Killing Joke, the new animated direct-to-video, but apparently Daniel saw it in theaters, and I didn't know it had a theatrical release.
Yeah, special theater screening.
Oh, how was that? First off, I'm just interested.
I guess it was cool that it was packed, but because it was completely packed, but it was kind of weird. Not wanting to get into what I thought of the movie, but before the movie started, they had like 12 minutes of special features of basically everyone involved in the movie talking about the movie and how great it was.
Well, I mean, I suppose that they can have that because even as it is, it's a really short movie.
Yeah, it is. So they're just like trying to pad out the runtime, but I was kind of annoyed by that because I walked about a mile to the theater. And so they kept, dicking around with, oh, it's really great, and I'm like, guys, I have to walk back home. It's going to be dark by the time I get out. So it was fine seeing in the theater, but I've had, better crowd experiences.
I remember, the only film I've ever seen limited release was Marnie and Me, so, it's kind of neat that a movie like this would get that, but...
No, that part was cool. One person tried to start an applause at the end of
it. They tried?
Did it work out?
No.
Aw.
I kind of felt bad.
I have some respect for some things that happen, but it's like I wouldn't necessarily applaud for this film.
So I'm Michael.
Yeah, I was going to say, should we introduce ourselves and tell everyone what we're talking about, maybe?
No, we shouldn't.
This is our friend.
Two of our friends, Alex and Daniel. Alex, identify yourself.
I'm Alex. Hi.
The other one is Daniel.
Yes.
You're going to get to know
right before my identity.
We've gotten the necessities out of the way.
So I want to actually ask Alex first, we're going to go through general thoughts about the movie, but I want to know, Alex, because as far as I know, you and Daniel are probably the bigger Batman fans.
I mean, I'm pretty big.
Are you pretty big?
Alex is really
is diehard,
and Daniel knows all the,
But see, I'm a picky nerd, so I only like certain things. I'm not really a comic book reader, but I love the animated series. I love a lot of the animated movies. I like Batman Returns a lot, so I'm very selective about the things I enjoy from the franchise. But as I am a fan of the animated series, I really did love the performances by Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill. Those were absolutely fantastic. And I thought they did a very different sort of performance than they normally do. I thought, especially Mark Hamill, was much more understated and a lot less goofy than he normally is.
He was flexible for the material.
Yeah, he sort of went to a darker place than he normally does, which was nice, and still did a really good job with it, I thought. I thought Tara Strong was pretty good, but I thought they were trying a little too hard with Barbara to make sure everyone knew
bad because Barbara deserves, I know Barbara, and this Barbara was a new Barbara, but she wasn't the Barbara I know, so it was weird. It was new territory for Tara.
Okay, so Daniel, tell us what you thought.
I thought it was shit. I'm a pretty big Batman fan. To say I'm a big comic reader is a bit of a stretch, but I've read my fair share. And maybe more than, maybe Alex and you, but probably not as many as Joe.
I think it's probably safe to say that we've all at least read The Killing Joke, though.
Oh yeah. But I just from a movie point of view, I just thought it was terrible. I thought that it looks like an episode of Super Friends. It is so unbelievably poorly animated. They move more than they do in Super Friends, but they move about as fluidly as they do in Super Friends. There's just such a lack of inspiration in the transferring this material to the screen. Because this is really good material, and it's just wasted here. I think the whole Barbara Gordon prologue is bizarre, and it makes the film feel really disjointed. It makes it feel like it's a Batgirl movie, but then it switches to being a Batman Joker movie at the end. I don't think it works at all. And then you have this end credit scene where, Batgirl, it ends with her and it's like, yep, that's what this story was all about, except it wasn't, or at least it wasn't supposed to be.
Joe, let's get Joe's opinion, and then we'll just discuss the movie.
Well, I mean, I can appreciate the fact that they didn't, like, a lot of people complain about The Dark Knight, that, like, there's this thing with, like, the new character where Rachel.
Rachel.
Yeah, there's a lot of stakes involved with the Rachel character and, Harvey and everything. And, like, but a lot of people felt like they weren't invested in Rachel, especially, like, I didn't know who she was because I didn't see, Batman Begins yet. But with this, it's like, I can appreciate
it was a different actress in Begins as well.
It's important to develop Barbara because, like, there's some things I've seen where it's like they don't develop the important, pivotal character enough. But, like, The Killing Joke is a story about Batman's relationship with the Joker, and like it's probably a flaw of the original comic that Barbara's so important, but at the same point, like the way that they developed it, I didn't feel like I was sold on Barbara. If I didn't know who she was, it didn't have the effect that you need to have with development. But I kind of liked the fact that they tried, and I appreciate that.
Okay, so I just want to, like, we should discuss the elephant in the room, which is, like, the first part of this movie. Because, as you were saying, Daniel, it's extremely disjointed and confusing in its placement in this film. Because you're right, it is, like, a Batgirl movie, and...
Wait, Michael, you didn't give your opinion.
I'm not going to give my opinion.
Michael's the host of this show.
Yeah, no, I'm supposed to be the unbiased one.
It will become obvious what he thinks.
Yeah, no, it'll be
Michael unbiased. Oh no.
Okay, you're objective. Okay.
So there is some weird like choice of vocabulary in regards to Batgirl, and I can kind of see why that they were trying to add this sort of prequel, because they wanted to be like, oh, well, she's gonna get, like, handicapped, possibly raped by the Joker, and we want to have this, like, chapter prologue that'll tie into that.
By the way,
selective...
Spoilers, if you're watching this, you've watched it.
No. Yeah, I'll add that at the beginning. Like, don't worry about that. But, the thing is that they use certain terminology, like Batman coming up to her and he's
objectified you.
Paris is objectifying you, and there was a couple of just really... strange choices of character interaction, and it felt like it was either trying to defend itself from what would happen later on, or it was kind of making a weak effort, I think, to weave itself into this like theme of these random events can happen and people can suffer because of that.
So, like, I think there's a disconnect between the narrative and the meta here, because, like, they're trying to say, like, Batman's trying to say something about the relationship between Paris and Barbara, that it's, like, this superficial thing. But it's, like, at the same time, you feel like the creators are staring directly at you in the audience.
My problem is that they confront you about it. Using the dialogue. If it was more cinematic and we had point of view shots from Paris's perspective, or like something that was maybe a little bit on the male gaze side, because I still think that that's a legitimate cinematic language that you can use.
I mean,
then it might not seem like it's beating you over the head with it. That's that was my problem.
There's an aspect that's like, it's almost like not sexual. It's almost more of like he's idealizing the conflict between himself as a villain and the heroes, and like that there's something like that going on that's a little bit more unique to the genre than your typical like male gaze thing.
I don't know about that. I think it's definitely like when they first, I guess not when they first fight, when they fight inside the safe, that whole setup before she escapes, that's like the beginning to some Batgirl like porn video. Like, like that's what that is leading up to. So I think it's pretty sexual. I don't like the line that Michael just said. He's objectifying you.
I don't like it either. I
think it's clumsy and awkward.
It's clumsy and awkward, and then they cut to a scene of her running, and the camera's like on her breast. It's just like, okay. It like pans from her ass up to her breast, and it just like holds there.
No, I think that you can do that sort of thing more subtly and then just not talk about it at all, and it would have like gotten away with it, in my opinion.
I kind of like the fact that they sort of created this conflict between like Barbara as sort of like a good guy, like pseudo like vigilante versus this villain character that kind of connects to the whole Batman versus the Joker thing, but.
And I mean, I don't know if it would get away with it in terms of the narrative. Alex, do you have anything that you want to add?
Oh, I thought it didn't fit the tone of the piece overall. I don't think it added to the mess. I think it's a very message-driven comic, and I think it's a very focused comic on its primary narrative, which is the Joker's backstory. I think the idea behind the Barbara prologue was, one, to pad out the movie to a feature length, because the comic is very short. But beyond that, I think it was to make it so that the one female character in the whole story is not just a victim, and she's not just a... it's like the fridge symptom.
Yeah.
In the refrigerator, where they're trying to...
They're trying to avoid that.
They're trying to avoid that. They're trying to just make it so that Barbara's not just, oh, look how nasty the Joker is, which I think undermines the subtle complexity of the piece in general, as far as the Joker's motives go. Because I don't think you're supposed to take away from...
Well, it seems like they're trying to, like, the Joker's always trying to say something about Batman and about Gordon. He's really in it for Gordon in the comic. And it's like, I think it's kind of valuable to sort of make Barbara part of the story because it adds stakes. If you have a more important character that's more developed in the story itself, then the events relating to her are more significant. But, like, it's almost like in the original comic, this could have happened to anyone.
Well, the thing is that the comic kind of understands that you're familiar.
The comic assumes that because comics do this. They assume that you're familiar. But in cinema, they generally want to introduce you to all the context because
sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes.
Harry Potter movies, a glaring example counter to that.
Harry Potter movies trust that but it's like in something like this, they're hoping that people who've never read a Batman comic will watch this movie. And they're like, you need to know Barbara, you need to know the Joker, you need to know, Batman, you need to know Gordon.
Alex, do you feel like with Barbara's addition, did it even like how would we approach doing this movie instead of having most of that, because that was basically half the movie was this Batgirl movie thing.
I think pumping up Barbara's role was a good idea, and pumping up who she is, like little things like she's been Barbara for 3 years. She got named. She's been Batgirl for 3 years. She's been all these little things to sort of characterize her a little bit more. I think those were good. I think the whole stalker, she's having a relationship with Batman, that was really unnecessary. It was really excessive.
Yeah.
I kind of was sold on it until it sort of went a little bit too far. There were some things where I was like, are we focusing on this?
Just sex, isn't it?
It was just sex, for God's sake.
My favorite part about that whole scene was the gargoyle watching him. He was just like, all right.
I don't know if it was Ben or Michael, but somebody we were watching this with noticed that.
I said this when we were watching it, but I even though he's clearly not, I always think of Batman as very sort of chastened, even though, like, sexually chastened. Like, I think he has a lot of romantic relationships, obviously, and he has a son, so obviously he's not that chastened, but I always think of him as very sort of sexually repressed. So it's very strange to me to see him like going that far in that way. I don't know. It was just very strange. And the Joker too. It's even weirder when it's the Joker. I always think the Joker's not in like a predator in that way. Like he's more in it for the joke, and I don't think that it's funny to rape someone. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought it was hilarious. I was waiting for Batman to pull out a bat condom.
We were joking about shark repellent because,
Batman, baby repellent. Is that what he has in his utility belt?
But I thought I kind of hated the scene. I hated Barbara's whole thing in there. She has this whole spiel about how she's Batgirl because he wanted it. And then Barbara was supposed to. She just took Batman's costume because there was like a symbol associated with that. She was her own person. I don't like how much they suggested that she's only doing this because of him and because she wants to be with him. You know, she had there was a thrill seeking. There was a sense of justice she wanted. I don't like this real dependence on him. They kind of hinted at. I don't like the fact that Batman would do something like that. I mean, Barbara Gordon is young. Barbara Gordon she's a child. I mean, I think in this, maybe she's in college, but she starts being Batgirl in high school, if I remember correctly.
Let's remember that this is an adaptation, so they're not necessarily, and there's like, they have cell phones and stuff, and it's obviously.
But it looks like, it looks like she's in college in this. This does not look like an older. It's just uncomfortable. Batman would not. I would like to think that Batman, would not have sex with his underage pupil.
Yeah, I don't think she's underage, but yeah, like much younger. It's almost.
She kind of goes like she's the one who's super fucking into.
She's the instigator.
Okay,
but Batman should have pulled a Black Dynamite. He should have gone, "Bitch, are you for real?"
Bitch, are you for real? So y'all don't believe I jumped, huh? So watch this good shit.
Yeah, I think drawing attention to that whole like female demographic empowering kind of thing was a mistake. You can do that without necessarily drawing attention.
Well,
to
there's
yourself.
like trying to look like you're trying to empower the female demographic, and then actually empowering the female demographic.
It was just really awkward.
Yeah. I feel like they were just advertising themselves too much with that.
And even on the internet, if you look around, even the, like Gail Simone and stuff really don't like it. So it didn't really succeed at what I think they were trying to do.
Character development is a worthy cause, but you should develop the character in a way which is something you would be a fan of. And I don't know if this version of Barbara was someone that I would immediately click with, like... On its own.
I wouldn't. She's that female character that you just kind of roll your eyes at. It's like, oh, she has to be in here. I mean, that's the way she's, in like those stupid action movies where they always had to have some random chick along for the ride. I mean, that's what she feels like. It's just annoying. And Barbara Gordon's not like
the token female.
Yeah, she's the token female. It almost feels like it's annoying. And Barbara Gordon is not like that. Barbara Gordon is a great character. I'm a big fan of her. So I'm not sexist.
Remember,
Bravo.
if you like Barbara Gordon, you're not sexist.
Yes. That is the only test. What did you think of Barbara's token gay friend?
He was something that Alan Moore, if he'd written it, would have done much better with, and otherwise felt...
completely superfluous. Completely pandering.
We need to dump all of his audio in from the gay guy from Riley Rewind.
It's such a stereotype, and he was just so token, and... Yeah.
I thought he looked like an amalgam of all the Beatles, but if they were in like a DC animated universe cartoon, and that freaked me out a little bit.
It kind of reminded me a little bit of Bruno, like a funkicide.
This is totally, like, tonally, this is a totally different thing, but if anyone's seen those old, I think what they should have done, talking about what they should have done, if anyone's seen those old Chuck Jones, Kipling adaptations, when he would adapt those Kipling stories were really short, but he made the really distinctive adaptations of those, and they were only like a half hour long. I think that's what they could have done, really, is made these really striking short piece instead of trying to stretch it out. I think it loses some of its consistency and some of its power when you try to add things, and I think the material they were adding wasn't as good. Like you have this like really childish sort of relationship drama going on, and then like the other half of the movie is the Joker talking about memories and how he's not messed up, and it's really this psychologically sophisticated, really well sort of directed piece where there's like shadows and there's a lot going on with the momentum of action, and the rest of it's just like an action romance, which is very odd. I don't really know what they were going for.
Yeah.
I thought it was really obnoxious, by the way, before we move on, and how in the very opening, like, of the film, it's like, oh, this is a different story than you're familiar with, or whatever. They had this opening piece of dialogue where it was just like,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah,
This isn't what you were expecting.
Because she's like, this isn't what you were expecting. I was sitting there in the cinema and I said out loud, you're right, this isn't what I was expecting.
You know, you kind of like expected to sort of open up with that, with Batman being the kind of the first character that we see, along with the imposter Joker, because that's kind of, you know, again, as you were saying, that's what the story is ultimately about. But and you know, I have to say that with the animation, as you were, as you know, I was kind of questioning. This is supposed to, they kind of pushed it into feature length, but it looks a lot like a TV series episode.
No, it doesn't. TV series looks better.
The animated series looked better
That
than
show
this.
looks great.
Like the 90s one? Yeah, or
Depending on which studio was doing the animation, but yes, some of the
I can't
animated
think of an
episodes
episode of the animated episode that looked worse than this. This just looked
there's a lot.
awful. Which one?
Prophecy of Doom. Oh, God.
Prophecy of Doom at least moved better than this.
Yeah, I think the characters felt like robots.
I don't
at the
know
time.
about the mobile scene.
they do kind of feel robotic.
No, look, go watch an episode of Super Friends. That's how they move. They move more than the Super Friends move. But
I'm
they
gonna have
move like
footage
the
of Super Friends just popping up right here, right now.
This feels like when we were saying that like FF13 was better than Sonic 06. Like, great praise.
It's great praise. You know, though, there was just a lot of like things about the directing that I just was not into, and Joe, I don't know how you felt about this either, but like I didn't like certain things. Like if you go back and read the original comic, the Joker doesn't stick his gun into her fucking, like, you know, pelvis. You know, it's clearly a fucking. They were going, yeah, it's a penis, like in the movie.
The movie was sold on some of the less interesting theories, and it really wanted us to think about them.
They were also clearly going for the new comic style, but you know that the deluxe edition stuff. The
With
proof
the
of that
color.
is like even the sepia tones with the highlights of red and stuff like
It's,
that.
more
in the-
grounded in
in the
reality.
flashback.
Okay, I know that like art is subjective, but I think that comic has gorgeous artwork. It reminds me of Watchmen. It reminds me of, you know, Black Sad. I really love the artwork in the comic, and I love both colorings of the background art. I don't know if you guys have a favorite.
I think the art is great in the comic. I prefer the original. I think the art in the movie is just awful and uninspired.
I think it's really standard, yeah.
It's very TV, but not in a way where, you know, it's like in anime sometimes you'll see an artist come in and be like, I don't care if you're not paying me overtime. I'm going to do better artwork than what we usually do.
There was only one shot in this entire movie that weirded me out with how like high quality it was in comparison to everything else.
The
Is
Joker's
this
eyes.
One shot of the Joker looking around, and it was weirdly higher detail than any other shot of him
It was
in the entire
also,
movie.
it was almost experimental.
So
like,
weird.
you know, you get that when Gordon is brought over and Joker is standing at the top of that, you know, sitting on his little throne. There's no reason that shot shouldn't have been scary. It should have been a terrifying image.
Well, it's hard to really get scared of this movie, actually, with not with the musical numbers and all that.
I don't want them to call this the end of the Killing Joke. I know it's a pain to see iterations, but I want another version.
I want another version
like,
too.
5 years down the line, I want an anime version actually, because I know that sounds weird and you're imagining Dragon Ball, but I want like a really artful, like Blood the Last Vampire sort of, you know, like style, like interpretation of this imagery.
No, I wouldn't want, you know, we know how this story should look. This should look like the animated equivalent of Apocalypse Now. That's what this movie should look like.
Oh yeah, no, like heavy shadow, like chiaroscuro, all that jazz. That
Yeah, they say that, maybe they had a low budget for this. Why wasn't the ending confrontation between those two done almost entirely in silhouette?
That's another good point. Yeah, there's just some strange.
Yeah, they didn't quite make as many stylistic choices as I would have liked. Like, we have to understand that when you're adapting something from a comic, you can't be as detailed as the comic. It's never going to happen. You're never going to get the right animation. It's going to look horrible.
This animation was so low frame rate. It wasn't that like I could almost see them just tracing and then like using flash
It's
assets.
well, the thing that they wouldn't trace is because the models are slightly different.
I guess, but like it's just
They copied, they didn't trace.
the one thing about 2D is that 2D allows you to break model. 2D allows you to like the audience imagines the ambiguity between like one angle, and then when you present the same angle again, an artist can draw it differently and the audience will accept this. You can simplify the animation for a certain scene and then go back to high detail when there's less movement. Unlike 3D, where if you constantly change the models, the audience has to get used to the fact that you're doing that, I don't know, it's weird. Like, I respect the fact that they scaled back, but I kind of like, I think I can see some directors like, I'm gonna say Mamoru Oshii, but I might be saying the wrong director name.
Mamoru Oshii's Ghost in the Shell.
Mamoru Oshii could do this. Like, I think I've seen some European directors who could do this, but it's very hard, and you have to have a studio that believes in you.
So
I could have done it. No, I'm sure I wouldn't have been able to done it.
Yeah, they needed to be more brave with the way that.
Okay, I'm gonna say this. You know who would have done it better? Zack Snyder. And I'm serious because he produced the Black Freighter short for Watchmen.
Oh, he did?
Okay, that movie is really low budget, but the silhouettes and the angles and the coloring of that movie give it a hallucinatory, nightmarish quality to it.
You could go that route, and it would be really visually interesting, probably more so than what they had going here. And I don't like certain choices to leave out motifs, and I'll have this on screen, but we have this like the needle buzzer motif used throughout the comic.
That was
and
a cool
that
thing.
Imagery is completely dashed from this adaptation.
They use it as a device, but they don't actually like incorporate it as like a subtextual thing. It just happens, like they use it one time.
It should be subtext, and it should kind of come at you as this subtlety. And again, I don't like being beaten over the head with certain things, and I don't like it when you don't try hard enough to beat me. So it's kind of like it's just I don't like I didn't like the sepia tone with the red highlights choice with the lobsters and the red hood, even from the deluxe version of the comic, and they kept that. So there's just I don't know. There's some things that I'm just not as into about the overall directing style. They could have been done better to improve this.
One thing I liked about the comic was that you were saying about that multiple choice thing, and how that they didn't emphasize it as much in the movie as they did in the comic. And like I used to give the Nolan movies a lot of credit for coming up with that whole "Do you ever wonder how I got that scars?" bit. And I thought it was
from
great.
Mad Love and The Killing Joke.
Yeah, Mad Love had it. Yeah. And so it's like this really cool thing, and like I wish that they would have put more focus on it, but maybe they knew that people might think that they were being redundant. But then they also included that one line from Batman Begins, like,
Swear to me.
To go off topic a little bit, it's kind of interesting because the Dark Knight version of that I want my backstory to be multiple choice is much more similar to the way Mad Love portrays it than the way The Killing Joke portrays it.
Yeah, I like the line though that I like the multiple choice line.
Yeah, well, because I'm not gonna rant about this, but like in Mad Love, it's really the Joker is a con artist, and he's trying to elicit sympathy from people and keep them off guard because he's psychologically trying to mess with them. Whereas in Killing Joke, it's more about like it's an aspect of his madness. It's just that he can't coalesce his mindset.
And of course, the multiple choice origin allows for the endgame story arc, which I thought was cool.
So, I'm just curious about you guys, but how do you feel about the whole Red Hood backstory in general, and including in the original comics? Did you actually like that as part of the story?
To get into it, I don't want to get into it too much because I could rant about it all day.
Just quickly.
To my mind, the Joker works best the way Paul Dini conceives of him, where he is a bully. He is a guy who is totally sane but acts insane to kind of knock people off guard and put them down and keep them from getting close to him and keep himself elevated above other people. I think that also really contrasts well with Batman, who could be seen as kind of a bully character who kind of puts other people down, keeps other people down to sort of elevate his own psyche. I think that's interesting. I think what The Killing Joke does is really well done, because I think Alan Moore's obviously a really good writer. But he does a good job with it. It's so ingrained in my mind the way the Joker is supposed to be that it's hard for me to accept an alternative interpretation, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I think that the alternate interpretation is fair, but one thing that I want to bring up as well is how after the second half of this movie, when it gets to the Alan Moore material, the dialogue changes on a dime
Suddenly,
to be way more
better.
poetic,
Yeah.
way more classy. It's sort of like, we go from "it was just sex, wasn't it?" to Alan Moore's poetry.
Yeah.
And that was a really jarring transition into the second half. I really wish that they had, if you're going to do the opening sort of segment again, I hate to come back to it, but at least kind of try to write it in the style of Alan Moore, and maybe that would have been worse, but maybe it would have been better.
Or just adapt another short Alan Moore story and have your film be a double bill.
Well,
That's a good idea.
I thought
Have
about
this
sure
be
which
a
one would be
double bill
appropriate.
with it be Killing Joke and For the Man Who Has Everything, which is Alan Moore's famous Superman
that could be cool.
comic.
Especially
already
with Batman
adapted
v
that,
Superman that just came out.
Yeah.
That would have been really I could see that.
Like
They
I was
already adapted For the Man Who Has Everything, though. They've already done an adaptation.
They did that in the animated series, and they did that very well. But they some things are different.
Yes, it is different from the original comic. That's true.
I was gonna say, I really like the way that Neil Gaiman interprets, like, whenever Neil Gaiman and Alan Moore are, like, sort of cross paths, especially in Miracle Man, the way he interprets, like, Alan Moore's, like, intent. Like, he's got a very strong sense of where Alan Moore is going with things. And I would have liked to see Neil Gaiman write the prologue to this movie, because I think he would have done really well with it.
So in terms of the latter half of the movie and the way that it was handled, did you guys like the additions of the fight scene and dragging sort of certain parts out?
I liked the fight scene. I thought it was cool. I thought the Upside Down Room was metaphorically sound and made sense that it was in like a carnival like that. But it also sort of showcased sort of the, I mean, it's kind of on the nose. It's another one of those things that's kind of on the nose, but the sort of how you had a domestic life, now it's been flipped upside down.
It creates this odd, like, the Joker looks at everything from a skewed perspective. It's not dead on.
Well, but with the room, right, they were trying to model it off of his backstory with his wife. And,
I imagine
and their house.
Even if you accept that really is his backstory in the canon of the comic book, like, I'm sure he twisted things to favor himself and to make it more tragic and more ironic, because he loves irony and he loves this sort of Greek comedy of everything.
No, I have to say that The Killing Joke, one of the things that I really love is, of course, the ending and the ambiguity, and I'm really glad that they actually kept that.
Yeah, I like
ambiguity, minus a couple of motifs that I wish were in there.
Yeah.
But and I wonder if you guys think that maybe this is a medium that, and I was thinking about this at the end, but the comic book medium lends itself to different kind of approaches, I would say. Because at the end of the comic, you have the text laughing before it disappears, and it's kind of ambiguous who is laughing at what point or who stops and that sort of thing, unless you really kind of tinker with it and take it apart. But here we had Batman the Joker stops laughing and Batman keeps laughing up until the roll to the credits. What did you guys think about that? Because I felt like it was odd, that decision. I don't know if I like it or not.
I think Kevin Conroy laughing as Batman is always odd. It's a strange experience.
It was really funny how, like, oddly, like, dad-like it was. Like, it reminded me of the laughter in the one, like, sequence in MGS5 where, like, Snake is laughing and it's, like, there's just something, like, funny, like, awkward about it, but yet you sort of smile. Like, I laughed along with them when I saw this.
I played the game several times and I don't remember which part you're talking about. I must have a horrible memory.
See, they're playing in the rain and he starts laughing.
Who?
Venom and Quiet. They're playing in the rain and they laugh awkwardly.
I'll take your word for it, Joe.
Yeah, but anyway, it's just like, it reminded me of that sort of odd, like, guy who you don't expect to hear laughing and it feels wrong.
I mean, that's usually the way it's played whenever Batman laughs. Is like, oh my god, what's he gonna do? Like, is he laughing because he's gonna hurt me? Like, what's this?
Yeah.
And Kevin Conroy's voice, just to finish the point really, Kevin Conroy's voice is so gruff and stoic that it's hard to imagine any sort of emotion. Even when he yells, it's kind of like awkward just because he's usually so straightforward.
I just wonder if the way that, since it was a visual medium and they were trying to have Batman be the last one to laugh, if it almost takes away from the ending. That's kind of, because it almost makes it feel like he's definitely sort of killing him. And again, there's no, the buzzer is gone, so the motif of that is missing.
Yeah, like
from the finale.
Yeah, there's a vagueness to like what the fate of the Joker is.
Yeah, it's just strange because it's like this lends itself to completely different interpretations. Weirdly enough, well, not completely different, but you know, I definitely think that it's trying to go for the he kills him in the end angle.
Maybe, yeah.
But
should I run through the different alternate endings and like maybe do a thing where we talk about what we think of it and what we think the movie was trying to say. Okay, so like there's the basic like Batman kills the Joker while laughing at the joke. There's the Batman lets the Joker go because Batman's been finally, you know, he's like, you know what? You know, I'm gonna give you a bone. I'm gonna throw you a bone. Then there's the one where he pokes him with the Joker serum and makes him go insane like permanently. And there's like the last one that I know about, which is more controversial, which is where it sort of plays into some like subtext of like the sort of criminal vigilante relationship where it's like, is there something that romantic that happens between the two of them? Like, what's going on?
the kissing joke theory.
The kissing joke, yeah. But yeah, it's one thing I kind of liked about what's his name, Paris Franz or whatever, that villain for Barbara, is that it's sort of, if you interpret the kissing joke theory or really any of the theories or the interpretations that emphasize the Joker's conflict with Batman and the comparison of the two, it's like I kind of liked it, if only because it made me think about, does Barbara have the same issue? Like, is she like Batman? Does she also have some odd flirtation with the nature of crime and its necessity in the world of the superhero as a sort of being that is created by the criminal for the purpose of playing against them?
And again, this is an adaptation, right? So it's fair for them to nullify a few interpretations, but I think getting rid of major visual motifs from the original is kind of a cruddy thing to do.
Like,
I don't know.
Batman subjecting the Joker to true insanity almost plays into the Paul Dini interpretation that he's not really crazy, for instance, you know. And they then have the police car, so you don't get to think about, like, are the police going to catch the Joker, or is Batman going to let him go? Like, that's...
wasn't there police cars in the original?
Yeah, there's this really great thing with the rain. Did they show the rain at the end of the movie?
They kind of did. They panned down to the rain, sort of, and then the movie ends.
The rain is so beautiful.
Did we talk about the Joker's song sequence?
No.
I like that. Yeah.
We can talk about that really quick.
So... I don't know if we can.
It was fun.
It was silly.
It was, but it felt right because the Joker never does what's
This
appropriate.
is something that they sort of attempted in Arkham Knight, and for some reason, the song in Arkham Knight is really like people are like, "Wow, what a great part of that game!" But the song itself was like, it doesn't even have a melody, but people really like it, and I'm very confused by this. But anyway, so this was an improvement in that the song had a melody, so that was kind of nice.
Whoever wrote that song, good on you.
It might have been I thought it was a standard. I thought it was like something that they pulled from an actual, that they didn't write themselves. Like, I'm pretty sure the song in Arkham Knight is one that the Rocksteady team wrote.
My favorite moment of like the Joker singing is still Arkham City's credits, but I gotta give credit to this movie for that.
He sings in that too, doesn't he?
Yeah,
Joker
he does.
sings a lot, apparently. This has become a thing that the Joker sings.
I gotta sing to Gordon and Batman.
I guess. I don't...
I didn't.
Mark
I mean,
Hamill's not-
I thought the song was fine, but again, it just comes down to the direction. That should have been a really sort of awkwardly creepy moment, and it just looked like he'd just come out of plastic surgery. It looks so awkward and was so, again, visually uninspired.
It reminds me a lot of The Secret of NIMH 2, Timmy to the Rescue, with the rat guy going Just Say Yes, Hero, that song. That's like what it reminds me of.
Oh, and
It was better than that.
This is an Alan Moore story where the Joker sings. I'm disappointed that the song was not Sinister Ducks.
So, yeah, I don't know. Like,
I gotta say, like, I liked the way it ended, but the movie itself, like, I think that they shouldn't stop with this story. I think they should keep trying.
keep trying.
But that doesn't mean that I think that they completely failed. I don't think this is the end. This isn't the ultimate version of The Killing Joke, and there's room for improvement.
Push the envelope further.
Yeah. I like the ending.
Another
I like the closing
specific
words.
Killing Joke adaptation, but yeah.
I guess this is I can't even say A for effort. This is a failed first attempt. Batman v Superman was better.
Granddad! Granddad! Granddad!
You're gonna get us lynched.
I thought the parts that were actually adapting The Killing Joke were pretty good. I thought it was like a reasonable adaptation. I think the animation could have been a little better. It could have been slightly more interestingly directed, like a bit more in the tone of the comic. I thought the Barbara parts were really stupid overall. I didn't really like any of them, and I thought they were a little too much pandering was going on. I think there were more natural ways to sort of do what they were trying. I respect what they were trying to do, but I think there were more natural ways to do what they were trying to do.
This is one of the more disappointing outcomes that I could have imagined, yeah. So, I'm gonna put that out there. I mean, it could have been I don't know. It could have been worse. Could have.
I could have made it worse.
Someone could have made it worse.
Well, I could have made it worse, but then it would have been better. Like, I would have although I would have kept that sex scene in there. I would have done other things that would have made it worse. We should do a whole podcast on just how we could have made it worse.
I'll probably sit out on that one. I'm not sure I want to be a part of that.
I'm gonna say thank you all for listening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I respect you for listening. You've earned my admiration for sitting through.
You guys are amazing.
Thank you all for watching. This has been Michael.
Joseph.
Daniel.
And Alex.
We'll see you guys next time. Peace out.
Bye.